when we read spiritual books or books about non-duality, hear the great stories of the masters, very often it seems that the so-called journey is just a smooth ride of awakenings. We just recognize, remember, understand who or what we are, and then everything is just getting better and better and better, and all our problems, all the problems in the world, everything just disappears gradually, or by this one big bang enlightenment event. And even though it is true that things are just getting better and better in many ways, and I know some of you are experiencing that, nevertheless, we have to see clearly also what is happening apparently through the world and so forth in us. It seems it's very similar to what happens to us when we grow in understanding and love. Very often is accompanied by release of things that are not free in us. And as I said many times, even the awareness and the peace is not disrupted by that. The disruption that is happening on the phenomenal level may feel very real, may appear very real, may have very unpleasant and disrupting thoughts releasing. Very often we see when we encounter the truth in some way or other, or in some place or other, which is always in us, essentially. But I'm thinking of ashrams that's been part of my journey. I've seen quite, sometimes we call them like washing machines. If we're in the presence of truth, in the presence of our shared being, of course. And that light of presence is shining brightly. The dark, hidden pockets of separation, as I call them sometimes, do emerge. Pretty much in all of us. The one event, enlightenment, and forever after, no more pockets of separation, no more vasanas, no more disruption whatsoever, I haven't encountered, at least in all those years and all those people that I met and speak with. So it seems to be much more closer to our experience, which we always refer to our experience here, and not to second-hand knowledge from books or stories. It is a very common trait that as more this light of knowledge that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago penetrates our mind, our body, as more we invite in us to free, to release, to enlighten, literally, those remnants of separation, remnants of belief based on the ignorance of me as a separate person, separate from consciousness, from the whole. Releasing, especially now it seems, a lot of feelings stored in our subtle bodies and so forth, physical bodies, coming up to wave and say goodbye, so to speak. And that might not be a pleasant experience to our avatar, to our body-mind. And it seems that's what's happening. So I want to remind you that this is very normal and very okay. In a way, it's great news. Whatever feeling or thought or perception comes up in us that pretends to be something that has the power to make us feel, think, and perceive to be a separate person should be celebrated, actually. Because we are freedom and truth lovers and know that all of that old habit and stuck energy in us and in the world just wishes to come back to itself, to its true nature. To sink back in and dissolve back into the source where it all came from, and some of it got stuck here somehow on the screen, in the play, pretending to be so important that it needs to stay as some separate phenomena. But no matter how much we resist or how much we try to hold on to any phenomenal experience, earlier or later it's time to go home. And as less we resist, and as less we try to hold on to certain experiences, phenomena, as easier it is, or we could say as less suffering is involved in the process. Some of you may have some profound mystical, spiritual awakening experiences along the way. Samadhis, beautiful, marvelous experiences to the avatar. And when they come, it seems they will never end. And when they do end, because they all do end eventually, the old habit of the separate person that usually survives those experiences. Firstly, it might be in shock why it doesn't remain that way forever when it was supposed to be eternal. And secondly, even more surprising often is that through the openings in the mind, the knots releasing in the body and in the mind, a lot of unprocessed, unintegrated, unenlightened, ununderstood, unfelt vasanas, habits, traits, traces of separation in the system may get freed in the understanding or in the experience. But most often, especially after deep openings and deep understanding, the aftermath, so to speak, is a wave of stuck energy coming up to the surface. Firstly, we need to know that this is normal and this is okay. And secondly, probably even more important, we need that openness and that honesty with ourselves to not hide behind some experience or non-dual understanding that we may had in the past. When unpleasant emotions that have the power to pretend that we are separate from others or the world, or terrifying thoughts appear in consciousness and they're so convincing that we buy into them, we need that honesty as human beings, not separate from consciousness, to welcome them openly and give them the space, so to speak, they need to also be dissolved back into its own source. And if we are authentically open to the possibility that maybe there are still some hidden pockets in us. And who could say that there may be not any pocket left anymore? I wouldn't assume that for myself. Never. We never know what's around the corner. So it's much smarter, so to speak, to be always open to the possibility that there is an old intense feeling or an old intense belief or an old intense perception, sense perception, can be a smell or any sight that has the power to make us forget for a moment what we have remembered so deeply already. And that's totally fine. The only one having a problem with that is who? And one beautiful thing about our group, which is growing in depth, I feel, is that we can play real here and we don't need to pretend anything and can show up no matter what's going on, how many of us do every Sunday, including myself. And may even our loving togetherness help us to, if there was some pocket that showed up this week, we may, addressing it or not, but just bringing it with us to this field of our shared awareness, may it can say hello and wave goodbye. And that many experience that in those meetings. Things start moving, as I always say, and that's very wonderful and very welcomed. You might even get angry at me. That's very possible when I talk some nonsense. We're all just doing our best. And those feelings especially seem to come up now with force. Feelings that we may not even want to admit that we have them. Anger, rage, maybe even violence. Disruptive energies may get released in our subtle bodies. And the understanding that we, awareness, consciousness, are like the open space, never actually having a problem with what is appearing in it. Can and is very helpful. But very often we may encounter, or sometimes at least, that the understanding of what I am and the successful unknotting of the belief system based on a separate person, somehow when a very powerful emotion comes up in me, means in the world. I don't even maybe know where it's coming from, if it's coming from my own subtle body or if it's coming just around the corner from somewhere. If I am in the rightful throne place of awareness, there is no difference to me from where this energy comes now, if it's mine or yours, or if it's coming from this or that. It's just here to be experienced, to be felt. And even though in theory, the understanding, when it's really deeply rooted, should be enough to dismantle the power of the emotion. Our experience often shows that the feelings, the emotions, do not just go away by coming back to understanding of what I am. They have a force, a power in themselves. And quite the contrary, the non-dual understanding can become like a band-aid, as I sometimes said, like just a non-dual suppression of that emotion, that feeling. Somehow the intelligence that we are, so it seems from my experience, wishes some ignorant feelings to be felt. Somehow we got the whole package. We have thoughts, feelings, perceptions, everything was given to us. And it seems some stuck energy of separation in the mind, which is the subtle body, is easier or more successful released, freed through the expression of the feeling, of the emotion, which is nothing else than just energy, stuck energy. And we experience that, if we call it something, it's like a vibration, like a sensation that we very often can experience here in our front line. They can be very intense or very, very, very subtle sensations. And the vast majority of us, especially in the so-called Western world, we very often have used thought to bypass or suppress our feelings. It's all good. Classic example. How are you? All fine. Great. Or more advanced. I am loving awareness. I don't have a problem. The so-called ego, the fear of dissolution in the apparent separate person will take any thought that promises success in going away from an unpleasant feeling. And most of us have been practicing most of our lives successfully to turn away from our feelings. And the consequence is, in the spiritual, in the non-dual world, in the West, very often there is a clear, good understanding of myself as non-dual awareness. But somehow, the itchiness, so to speak, in the body through life situations keeps coming. And these days, maybe it keeps coming with some force. So you all know, who've been attending here for a while, that we're great friends of thought. We encourage thought, and we inquire, and we investigate into the truth. But when it comes to those feelings of separation stuck somehow here in this form, thought is, in most cases, pretty useless. Exactly because of that lifelong learned habit to use thought to move away from the feeling. And because it's a lifelong habit, usually the thought overrides the feeling. It's kind of higher in the hierarchy, so it has the power to suppress. So it seems like an antibiotic. We take the thought and the feeling seems to have disappeared. So it's a great, so we keep throwing that antibiotic. So the idea to meet those feelings of separation is, of course, not to push thought away. That's not our way. We're not pushing anything away. But it might be useful for a while to really meet these sensations, these feelings, these traces of separation in me directly, while putting thought aside for a while. Not engaging with it, not putting our awareness into the thinking or even the investigating or even self-inquiry process. We might put aside the YouTube, the non-dual book, the Satsang, to finally meet this feeling that pretends still to be a separate me. Thought tends to make, out of fear, tends to make the feeling personal, meaning my feeling, my problem, or in relating to others, you did that, because of you I have that problem, that feeling. It doesn't matter to the fear, so to speak, to which to what it attaches to. It attaches to something personal, because in that way it can sustain its sense of separation. I am feeling this and that. You cause this and that in me. But we know, and we investigated, and we discovered and experienced that the loving awareness that we are is universal. In other words, impersonal. It's just energy. It's just a feeling that may got stuck in our energy body, in our subtle body, in our mind. So the trick, so to speak, to meet those feelings is to meet them from the impersonal perspective of loving awareness. And that might be not a very happy process for the remnants of the ego, if there are any left. Because it doesn't like this downgrade from its super important, I have a problem, I have a feeling, you, to, oh, it's just a sensation. Oops. There is actually no problem except of sensation, sensating, vibrating to certain degrees of intensity. Yes, it can get very intense, I know. But nevertheless, we need this impersonal meeting of the feeling that still, in its own way, believes to be separate. And this meeting in this impersonal way, I call felt sense understanding. Then it's complete. Then it's not only the dismantling of the belief here, but it's like with my whole being, I see, feel it's not real as a separate phenomenon. And this impersonal felt sense understanding gives the energy the permission to go home, to rest in peace, to go back to the source, because it doesn't belong anymore to me, to this person. It, so to speak, realizes that it's impersonal. So it has no more excuse to stick on our bodies, our subtle bodies. And I'm seeing more and more over the years, also in my own process, and with some of you I've shared this also one-on-one, how important it seems to be to have these two pillars in our satsang, in our understanding, this understanding and this dismantling of belief through self-inquiry, through thought, higher reasoning, sometimes we call it, but also to have the second pillar and integrate, embrace, welcome the feeling level in our bodies in the same way, with the same open, welcoming, loving awareness. So practically, whatever appears on the screen of awareness, we remember that we are the awareness, the screen upon which all these phenomena, including those sensations, those vibrations, appear. We make sure that we are aware of the totality of our experience, that we don't exclude any of our experience, that we don't fragment our experience into parts as the conditioned mind is doing it. Fragment our experience maybe only into thought appearing, pretending, masking to be the actual feeling. The fragmenting is very common, showing up in the thought, for example, I'm sad. And the thought, I am sad, is confused by the sadness. The thought pretends to be the feeling. The mind loves that because it has fragmented the experience and excludes, by pretending that this is the whole picture, it successfully pretends and hides from us the feelings, the emotions that are unpleasant, so-called unpleasant. And as thought is very tricky, as we all know, it's so much easier to meet those feelings as sensations. So to be this totality, this container of our experience, and as we did many times, to see thoughts appearing, sense perceptions, and in this loving awareness there is this vibrational field, what we usually call our body, this vibrating energy field, what Eckhart Tolle calls the inner body. It's always here. It's our mind as a felt sense phenomena. And it's felt sense by awareness. The mind doesn't feel, doesn't experience this sensation. The mind, what we mean by mind normally, thought doesn't feel. It doesn't know how to feel. So it pretends how to feel or that it feels, but it doesn't. Awareness, consciousness is experiencing. And I remember when I did my first body scan after yoga class many years ago, where you're supposed to feel this inner body, right? These sensations, these energies. And I was like, oops, I don't have a body. If we look with the mind for those sensations, we may not find anything. Through thought, if the habit of thought being our reality, being me, is still very strong, which is not so much the case for our group, usually. We will overlook those feelings, those sensations, this vibrational field, this inner body, this energy body. But if we look, so to speak, from the perspective of awareness, if we are this open, spacious, loving awareness that is welcoming, allowing the totality of our experience, besides thought appearing, passing by and dissolving, also this vibrational field, this sensational field. And as more is going on, as more sensational it is, so to speak. And it's very sensational for many at the moment because it's a lot going on. So we don't have to do anything with these feelings, with these sensations. We don't want to heal them, free them, enlighten them by willpower. That would be, again, thought trying to do something that it can't. We just want to be the awareness that is aware of them. As a whole, like when we're sitting here and listening to these words, consciousness is listening to these words right now. In the same time, we can be aware of this energy field, of this vibrational field, of this inner body in us, in consciousness, vibrating, dancing its dance of sensation as a whole, and just being aware of this inner body already makes sure that what comes up here and now is not going into a new hidden pocket, somewhere hidden in my subtle body that I have to deal with later. So in that way, we experience life, and whatever comes our way from outside or inside, doesn't matter, same, is integrated in the moment, in awareness. And in that way, at least we don't accumulate more feelings, sense of separation. That's a great deal already if we can live life, whatever we do, holding in our awareness this vibrational field dancing its dance. Sometimes more sensational, sometimes less, depending on the circumstances, the space we are in, the people we are with. The direct experience as awareness of energy, of our mind and the cosmic mind. That's the one side of the feeling, so to speak. And the other side is when we stop accumulating feelings of separation. And interestingly, as I tried to express in the beginning, as less we keep accumulating new, unprocessed, unintegrated experiences and feelings, as more, very often and very, very likely, we will experience old, unprocessed, unintegrated stuff to come up. And then maybe we see, like in the world these days, some people say, oh, nothing is going on. I don't feel anything. Everything is like, I just go to my work. And what are you talking about? Everything is fine. Nothing is different. But if we have cleared, so to speak, our mind, our subtle bodies from feelings of separation to a certain degree, and we don't keep adding, deeper stuff that was hidden maybe for a long time emerges, and that can be quite intense in the sense how it feels. And those feelings usually very often come up in relation to other people. It's us bringing to ourselves a form of consciousness of someone who is annoying or pushing our buttons. And some these days may push some very hidden buttons. So these feelings usually show up in a more specific way. So while we're holding this subtle field of the subtle body in our awareness, we might go deeper and discover, oh, this feeling of annoyance or resistance or even maybe slight anger or frustration, we can kind of meet it directly in the moment, or often it's not available in the moment because we're dealing with that person or that situation. So sometimes we go home and there is still this, or maybe the mind's still like, oh, I should have said this, and if I would have just had the right formulation, I would have won. The feeling is still kind of very often sitting there, unintegrated, unmet, unfelt, and we might even use thought to bring it back up, the situation. And then in the broader subtle body field of vibration, we can find, especially here in the midline, like vortexes or tensions or knots or stuckness or hardness, tightness, sensations that are connected to this particular feeling, to this particular frustration, this particular anger or sadness. And if we hold this sensation as loving awareness in an impersonal way, and what does it mean? Sometimes I like this example of like a benevolent, indifferent mother or father watching the kids on the playground without making them see that he or she is watching the kids. They are free to dance their dance, to play, but we have an eye on them. We don't want to kind of track down those feelings and like, oh, now I'm going to tackle you and make you gonna go away forever and I'm going to free you. That is not loving awareness usually. That is more, again, someone who wants to get rid of something which is not loving awareness. But if we can hold it in this loving, indifferent, benevolent, embracing way in and as the totality, and allow this particular sensation that might be stuck for a while, it might just feel like there is nothing moving. There's just like a flat numbness, and just by looking from this loving, open spaciousness perspective, not like the laser of the separate person, but from the totality, we may see that this feeling starts to dance its dance home back to consciousness. I'm still doing that. If I come back from town or from some situation, I may lay down or sit for a while and put thought away for a while. Don't investigate, don't think about the truth, don't engage in those, and allow just for a while these sensations to dance. It's dance, and it's to make sure that nothing remains. Also before sleeping, it's very good maybe for 10-15 minutes to just loving awareness, to let the day pass by, not only as thought but also as sensation, so we don't carry on into the night, into the dreams, and into the next day those unprocessed feelings. We'll come to your question in a minute, Leslie. Just to round that up a bit, this very important level of feeling in my experience. To the mind, to thought, to the conditioned mind, this might seem like a very boring thing to be aware of these sensations. It was like, nothing is happening. Let's read a non-dual book. Let's have satsang. Let's do something. Let's get rid of them. And very often, even the most subtle of those sensations, because there's layers of layers and layers, and on the front there might be the sensation of frustration, and underneath we will see that there's actually some boredom lurking, and we go deeper and deeper and deeper, and we don't even need to name them, but we find subtler and subtler expression of this sensations in our energy body. And as more subtle, as more fine, so to speak, they are, as more boring they are to the thought, to the conditioned mind, as more juice of separation they often carry still. It's like our own game. We're playing with ourselves, like we are hiding those to have something for later to feel separate about or bad about ourselves. So, but if we understand, and then also more and more experience, how clearing, how freeing, how enlightening in the literal sense, making us lighter, giving our avatars a lighter body, not carrying this heaviness with us to dance and play this beautiful life. As more we can see that this meeting of feelings in this most direct way is very, very beneficial to the avatar being able to play freely. And we may never get the confirmation from the conditioned mind or from thought, But in our life, we will see, and we do see, many of us, the effects that we become much less reactive to situations and to people, and we are free to live not from this sense of separation that needs to protect this separate me. We can stay open and meet the world and other people in this open vulnerability, in love and understanding and togetherness and friendship, and life just becomes more beautiful. And we not only know that we are one shared being, we more and more also will feel that we are one shared being. In other words, we may more and more will love everyone as ourselves. Sounds a bit itchy, but that's the most beautiful human experience, to see and feel other people as myself. So in a way, it's teaching somehow how it's evolving out of awareness with all of your help, how it's coming through for us. Seems to go more and more in this direction, that we have a deep love for higher reasoning, for inquiry, for understanding, and more now also including the feeling of separation. So we may all not only know, but experience the final and deepest understanding that I have encountered, at least so far, the true felt sense understanding of non-duality as a human being, discovering, feeling, living, experiencing my life, and seeing that our humanness and our consciousness are one. Not two, non-dual. So whatever we are thinking, whatever we are perceiving, whatever we are feeling, is that pointer of Maya to point back to us, our true nature, to point back to ourselves. Flup, flup, emerging in consciousness and back into consciousness, experienced in the avatar as love, as beauty, as understanding, as peace. not giving any object, including the object of my own apparent separate self, the false illusory reality to be a separate thing. Match our non-dual understanding, if we want to call it that way, whatever we call it, that there are no things separate from me, that this is all just my self-consciousness dancing its dance in different apparent forms, including feeling forms, pleasant and unpleasant ones, different packaging, same insight, so to speak. Consciousness, pure love. And the right seeing, the right feeling, the right understanding of those feelings reveals, uncovers the costume of separation, of anger, of sadness, of frustration, and so on. So let's make sure in our meetings besides of the talk and whatever is going on, where we make sure that we hold in this loving space of our shared being also these vibrational energy fields of our subtle bodies, that they get as enlightened as the rest, so to speak. Just words, you know. Don't take me literally, please. Okay, Leslie, let's see. Everyone is welcome to introduce some questions. So Leslie is asking, when you say we need to allow the expression of the emotion, how does that happen? I find the feeling lasts much longer than the thought. Or is it that the feeling has generated the thought? Thank you. My question has been answered. Okay. very often when we invite as awareness this feeling level, this sensational level, if we're not so used to it, it can come up as kind of almost like a restlessness, like almost like a I want to run feeling. That's okay, and we can see as more we play with that, and it should be a playful, loving way. Don't want to become very serious feeling enlightens now. Just allow them to appear, and sometimes there is a certain intensity to them that is quite something. And the mind will sneak back in and say it's too much, it's too strong, but loving awareness knows exactly what is allowed to emerge, so to speak. And the fundamental non-dualist, what may challenge what we spoke about today and say, but non-dual awareness is always free. It's never touched by those feelings and these phenomena in the world. What's the problem? I am this awareness and it is always okay. The awareness that is aware of the feelings is always the same, unchanged, inherently peaceful. Absolutely true. Or the Theravada Malay version of Ramana Maharshi, I am not my body. Also true. But even I am not my body, the body is me. Even I am not the world is me or in me. And the world and my body and my mind, and that is the ignorance. on all levels, pretends or has learned by habit of ignorance to believe I am my body. So to speak, the body is ignorant of not being a body but consciousness, metaphorically speaking. So to speak, the mind doesn't know that it is in reality consciousness, and so forth pretends to be a separate person. So this ignorant, apparently ignorant mind and body wants to be informed by this truth that I am not the body, that I am not the mind. And even the world wants to be seen as what it is, beautiful, from the perspective of awareness. So this oneness of the screen and the movie is also experienced in the body, in the mind, in my relationships, in my work. The recognition of myself as consciousness, as awareness, is total and complete by the first remembering, by the first recognition, re-recognition. But all these apparent parts that we have created in this game of ignorance still pretend to be parts. And that's where the honesty comes in. As long my body pretends to be a body, and it feels like a body, and it acts like a body, and it feels heavy like a body, and it feels separate from other beings, then the body doesn't know that it is awareness, so to speak. And as long thought produces these thoughts of separation, of a separate me, the mind still pretends to be a separate person. So we can only claim, I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the world, if this is really our experience. Otherwise, it's just more learning, more memory, and it might even has been our experience, and for many of us it had, but the non-separation, the peace, the happiness of myself in this body or as this body is as continuous as the formless non-dual awareness, so to speak. And that's why we see in the history, great sages and saints, somehow the recognition, the understanding is the same for all of them. But how much of that is kind of finding its way here, metaphorically speaking, in this expression of consciousness, in this dance, that it can be lived fully 24/7, which is called traditionally Sahaj Samadhi, the non-experience of continuously just being myself without problems. We could call it happiness. It's not only a formless, non-dual experience, but our life, because it is life. And then, as we always say, no matter what's going on, we can be happy campers. Camping here in this dream for a while, with the good and the bad, the pleasant and the painful, welcoming it all, dancing our dance until also our avatar experience dissolves back to where it came from. And we make sure, and that is my understanding, we make sure that we don't take some secret separation, some pockets in our subtle bodies, in our minds, that when we leave this body behind, leave this mind behind and go we don't go, of course. That's the limitation of words. When we leave this body and mind behind, then we make sure that there is nothing left in this dream that is kind of unfinished business. So we may come back out of the freedom because we want to play again, because it's a beautiful dream, but we're not obliged to come back and finish our business, which is usually called karma. And that karma is normally not appearing as thought telling me, oh, I have unfinished business. It's usually hiding somewhere, and it loves to hide in feelings. So it's always a bit paradoxical. Even we are this whole, complete, free, loving awareness. There are these apparent parts in us that are playing for the sake of the game to be separate things, separate phenomena, separate forms. And somehow this embodiment of awareness, we could call it, on all levels of our being, makes also our human experience complete and happy and fulfilled. And that's our game here, some, in case you didn't know. Last chance to sneak in a question or a comment or anything. Otherwise, we slowly wrap it up for today. Anton.
Hi, Adrian.
Good to see you.
You too. Just wanted to share what came to me in the last minutes of
Can
the
you
Satsang.
speak up a bit? I have you very quiet. How is it for you guys?
How is it
Yeah.
now?
Okay, maybe it's my own. Okay, I will hear you. It's all right.
Now it's fine? Maybe now it's
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
Yeah, I said that I just wanted to share something that came to me in the last minutes of the Satsang, that it's including and not excluding. So it was like a felt experience that it as it is, it's not even seems not even to be a matter on which point of the journey you are considering karma. If you one with it as it is, with what happens, it's sahaja. It's like you're not excluding nothing from the experience, and then you're one with it. And if we are excluding something, like this is me and this is my experience, we are in the game, in the process of karma. Like nothing changes, just the experience of what happens. So it just came to me and I felt like sharing.
Yes. Thank you. All-inclusive human experience, sometimes I call it. Our consciousness reveals the same insight to us. Beautiful. That's it. And karma or not, we're free. In this all-inclusive moment, right?
The only thing that like a bit like stays as a question is like for me maybe some like somehow it's the idea of responsibility. It's like because you can say it or feel it, but then when you're in the game, you still have some kind of responsibility. I don't know. It's or maybe not. I'm not sure.
I would say you are acting naturally responsibly, because you're acting from that totality, from that consciousness, from that oneness. Usually the one who acts irresponsible is the one to believe to be a separate person. Somehow this embodied loving awareness in the expression of that particular avatar naturally, without someone trying to be responsible or to do the right thing, seems to find the appropriate action, speech for that situation. That will be judged by minds based on a mostly still limited perspective. So, of course, there is no truth in that. Limited perspective, but what comes out from that oneness, even it may appear not to be so, usually is in harmony with the situation. And those very often opposing poles that you're finding yourself, you're still at home in Israel, right?
Yeah.
Those impossible opposing two sides that are impossible to solve for the point of view, the conditioned dualistic mind can find from this oneness, from this totality, some form of resolution. When the totality is seen, when from the totality it is seen. And almost never that will be perfect in the game, because the nature of the game is to carry some imperfection in the appearance. But the perspective from the totality will see in the imperfection or in the conflict the perfection, the resolution, maybe even the beauty and the love.
Thank you.
Take good care of yourself, please. And I hope from this totality, from this sanity and intelligence, some solution of peace, lasting peace will come also to this conflict. Let me see if I find a song for us. Unless someone wants to sing. Okay, me also not. Thank you for coming. Hopefully, peaceful week ahead in this a bit crazy times. And God willing, we'll meet again next Sunday. Please be well.